9月15日練習記録 The people in the park, can you hear me clearly? Okay, good. Have you ever had a question in mind for so long that it's become part of how you think? Maybe even part of who you are as a person? Well, I've had a question in my mind for many years, and that is, how can you speed up learning?This is an interesting question because if you speed up learning, you can spend less time at school. And if you learn really fast, you probably wouldn't have to go to school at all. When I was young, school was sort of okay, but I found quite often that school got in the way of learning. So I had this question in mind, how do you learn faster? And this began when I was very young.When I was 11 years old, I wrote a letter to researchers in Soviet Union asking about hypologia. This is sleep learning. Where you get a type recorder, you put in beside your bed, and it turned on in the middle of the night when you are sleeping. And you are supposed to be learning from this. A good idea, unfortunately, it doesn't work. But...Hypnophagia did open the door to research in other areas, and we have had incredible discoveries about learning that began with the first question. I went on from there to become passionate about psychology, and I have been involved in psychology in many different ways for the rest of my life up until this point.In 1981, I took myself to China and I decided that I was going to be native level in Chinese inside 2 years. Now, you need to understand that in 1981, everybody thought Chinese was really difficult and that a Westerner could study for 10 years or more and never really get very good at it.And I also went in with a different idea, which was taking all of the conclusions from psychological research up to that point and applying them to the learning process. What was really cool was in 6 months, I was fluent in Mandarin Chinese, and it took a little bit longer to get up to native.But I looked around and I saw all of these people from different countries struggling terrible with Chinese. I saw Chinese people struggling terrible to learn English and other languages, and so many questions got refined down to how can you help a normal adult learn a new language quickly, easily, and effectively? Now this is a very important question in today's world.We have massive challenges with the environment. We have massive challenges with social dislocation with words. All sort of these things going on. And if we can't communicate, we're really going to have difficulty solving these problems. So we need to be able to speak each language, other languages. This is very important. The question then is how to do that?It's actually really easy. You look around for people who can already do it. You look for situations where it's already working and then you identify the principles and apply them. It's called modeling. And I have been looking at language learning and modeling language learning from about 50 to 20 years now.And many observations from this is that any adults can learn a second language to fluent inside 6 months. Now, when I say this, most people think I'm crazy. This is not possible. So let me remind everybody of the history of human progress. It's all about expanding our limits. In 1950,Everybody believes that running 1 mile in 4 minutes was impossible. And then Roger Bannister did it in 1956, and from there it goes shorter and shorter. 100 years ago, Everybody believes that heavy stuff doesn't fly, except it does, and we all know this. How does heavy stuff fly? We organize the manual using principles that we have learned from observing nature, birds in this case. And today, we've gone even further. You can fly a car. You can buy one of these for a couple 100,000 US dollars. We now have cars in the world that fly. And there's a different way to fly which we've learned from squirrels. So all you need to do is copy what a flying squirrel does. Build a suit called a wing suit and off you go. You can fly like a squirrel. Now most people, a lot of people, I wouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people think they can't draw. However, there are some key principles, 5 principles, that you can apply to learning to draw, and you can actually learn to draw in 5 days. So if you draw like this, you learn these principles for 5 days and apply them. And after 5 days, you can draw something like this. Now, I know this is true because that was my first drawing, and after 5 days of applying these principles, that was what I was able to do. So anybody can learn to draw in 5 days. And in the same way, with the same logic, anybody can learn a second language in 6 months. How? There are 5 principles and 7 actions. There may be a few more, but these are absolutely core. And before I get into those, I just want to talk about 2 myths. I want to dispel 2 myths. The first is that you need talent. Let me tell you about Zoe. Zoe came from Australia, went to Holland, was trying to learn Dutch. Struggling extremely. A great deal, and finally people are saying, you are completely useless. You are not talented, give up. You are a waste of time. And she was very, very depressed. And then she came across these 5 principles. You moved to Brazil and you applied them, and 6 months you was fluent in Portuguese. So talent doesn't matter. People also think about imagining a new country is a way to learn a language. But look around Hong Kong. Look at all the Westerners who've been here for 10 years who don't speak a word of Chinese. Look at all the Chinese living in America, Britain, Australia, Canada, have been there 10, 20 years and they don't speak any English. Immersion per se does not work. Why? Because a drunk man cannot learn to swim. When you don't speak a language, you are like a baby, and if you drop yourself in a context which is all the adults talking about stuff over your head, you won't learn. So what are the 5 principles that you need to pay attention to? First, the 4 words: attention, meaning, relevance, and memory, and these interconnect in very, very important ways, especially when you are talking about learning. Come with me on a journey through a forest. You're gonna walk through a forest and you see something like this. Little words on a tree. Maybe you pay attention. Maybe you don't. You go another 50 meters and you can see this. You should be paying attention. Another 50 meters, if you haven't been paying attention, you see this. And at this point, you're paying attention. And you've just learned that that is important. It's relevant because it means this, and anything that is related. any information related to your survival is stuff that you are going to pay attention to, and therefore you are going to remember it. If it's related to your personal goals, then you're going to pay attention to it. If it's relevant, you're going to remember it. So it's a first rule. First principle for learning a language: focus on language context that is relevant to you. Which brings us to tools. We master tools by using tools, and we learn tools for us when they are relevant to us. So let me share a story. A keyboard is a tool. Typing Chinese a certain way, there are methods for this. That is a tool. I had a colleague many years ago who went to high school, night school, Tuesday night, Thursday night, 2 hours each time practicing at home. She spent 9 months and she did not learn to type Chinese. And one night we had a crisis. We had 48 hours to deliver a training manual in Chinese, and she got a job, and I can guarantee you, in 48 hours she learned to type Chinese because it was relevant, it was meaningful, it was important. She was using a tool to create value. So the second principle for learning a language is to use your language as a tool to communicate right from day one, as a kid does. When I first arrived in China, I didn't speak a word of Chinese, and on my second week, I got to take a train ride overnight. I spent 9 hours sitting in the touring car talking to one of the girls on the train. He took an interest in me for some reason, and we just chatted all night in Chinese. She was drawing pictures and were making a movement with hands and facial expression, and piece by piece by piece, I understand more and more. But what was very cool was 2 weeks later, when people were talking with Chinese around me, I was understanding some of this, and I haven't even made any effort to learn that. What had happened? I absorbed it that night which brings us to the third principle. When you first understand the message, then you will acquire the language unconsciously. And this is really, really well documented now. It's something called comprehensible input. There is 20 or 30 years of research on this. Stephen Crefan, a leader in the field, has published all sorts of these different studies, and this is just from one of them. The purple bars show the score on different tests for language. The purple people were people who had learned by grammar and formal study. The green ones are the ones who learned by comprehensible input. So comprehensive words, comprehension is key. And language learning is not about accumulating a lot of knowledge. In many, many ways, it's about physiological training. A woman I know from Taiwan did great in English at school. She got A grades all the way through. Went through college A grades, went to the US, and how she couldn't understand what people were saying. And people started asking her, "Are you deaf?" And she was English deaf. Because we have filter in our brain that filter in the sounds that we are familiar with, and they filter out the sounds of language that we are not. And if you can't hear it, you won't understand it. If you can't understand it, you are not going to learn it. So you actually have to be able to hear these sounds. And there are ways to do that, but it's physiological training. Speaking takes muscle. You've got 43 muscles in your face. You have to coordinate those in a way that you make sounds that other people will understand. If you've ever done a new sport for a couple of days and you know how your body feels, hurts, if your face is hurting, you're doing it right. And the final principle is state. Psychophysiological state. If you are sad, angry, worried, upset, you are not going to learn. Period. If you are happy, relaxed, in an alpha brain state, curious, you're going to learn very quickly, and very specifically, you need to be tolerant of ambiguity. If you are one of these people who you need to understand 5% every word you are hearing, you will go not. Because you will be incredibly upset all the time because you are not perfect. If you are comfortable with getting some, not getting some, just paying attention to what you do understand, you are going to be fine, relaxed, and you will be learn quickly. So based on those 5 principles, what are the 5 actions that you take? Number 1, listen a lot. I call it brain stalking. You put yourself in a context where you're hearing tones of language, and it doesn't matter if you understand it or not. You listen to the rhythm. You listen to patterns that repeat. You are learning. You listen to things that stand out. So just talk your brain in this. The second action is that you get the meaning first. Even before you get the words, you go, well, how do I do that? I don't know the word. Well, you understand what the different posture mean. Human communication is body language in many ways. So much body language. From body language, you can understand a lot of communication. Therefore, you're understanding. You are acquiring through comprehensible input. And you can also use patterns that you already know. If you're a Chinese speaker of Mandarin or Cantonese and you go to Vietnam, you understand 60% of what they say to you in daily conversation. Because Vietnamese is about 30% Mandarin, 30% Cantonese. The third action, starting mixing. You probably have never thought of this, but if you've got 5 verbs, 5 nouns, and 5 adjectives, you can say 1,000 different things. Language is a creative process. What do babies do? Me, both, now. Okay, that's how they communicate. So start mixing that, get creative, have fun with it. It doesn't have to be perfect, just have to work. And then you're doing this, you focus on the core. What does that mean? Well, any language is high frequency context. In English, words on the word cover 85% of anything you're ever going to say in daily communication. 3,000 words gives you 98% of anything you're going to say in daily conversation. You got 3,000 words, you are speaking the language. The rest is icing on the cake. And you're just beginning with a new language. Start with your tall books. Week number 1. In your new language, you say this like, how did you say that? I don't understand. Repeat that please. What does this mean? All in your target language, you're using it as a tool, making it useful to you. It's relevant to learn other things about the language. By week 2, you should be saying things like me, this, you, that, give, hot, simple pronouns, simple nouns, simple verbs, simple adjective, communicate like a baby. And by the start of 4 weeks, you're getting into glue words, although, but, therefore. Those are logical transformers that tie bits of a language together, allowing you to make more complex meaning. At that point, you're talking. The 6th thing you have to do is copy the face. You gotta get the muscle working right. So you can sound in a way that people will understand you. There are a couple of things you do. One is that you hear how it feels and feel how it sounds, which means you have a feedback loop operating in your face. But ideally, if you can look at a native speaker and just observe now how they use their face, let your unconscious mind absorb the rules, then you are going to be able to pick it up. And if you can't get a native speaker to look at, you can use stuff like this. And the final idea here. The final action you need to take is something that I can direct connection. What does this mean? Well, most people learning a second language sort of take the marathon words and the target words and go over them again and again in their mind to try and remember them. Really inefficient. What you need to do is realize that everything you know is an image inside your mind. It's feelings. If we talk about fire, you can smell the smoke. You can hear the crackling. You can see the flames. So what you do is you go into the imaginary and all of that memory, and you come up with another pathway. So I call it same box, different path. You came out of the pathway and you build it over time. You become more and more skilled at just connecting the new sound to those images that you already have into the internal representation. And over time, you even become naturally good at that process that become unconscious. So there are 5 principles that you need to work with. 7 action. If you do any of this, you are going to improve. And remember, these are things under your control as a learner. Do them all, and you are going to be fluent in a second language in 6 months. Thank you.